thank you, India Foundation. This is a very challenging session to moderate. It's a privilege, in fact, for me to speak on this. I noticed that the focus of today's discussion is a slew of new technologies from cryptocurrencies, dark web, cognitive networks, terror financing, and financial fraud. So we are happy to announce that we have a very distinguished panel who are going to be speaking on this. I'd just like to make a few words. I find that technology always outpaces legislation. So whatever we do, our lawmaking processes are 2 or 3 steps behind technology. This we have seen in the case of cryptocurrency, where most countries are finding it hard to regulate. This again happens in controlling the dark web, because as yesterday's speaker pointed out, the differences between the deep web and the dark web is such, getting into the dark web is a matter that is, well, technologically does require some skills, and it is a Wild West sort of thing in cyberspace. Nobody knows how to control it. And therefore it is being misused for a lot of criminal activities, being trading in drugs or whatever, and sometimes cryptocurrency being done on that, despite the fact that cryptocurrencies actually have a fairly good ledger system like the blockchain. But due to the fact that there is very little legislation about it, we find that it is often being misused. Though as I said, per se, we cannot call any technology dangerous, except that we don't have sometimes the controls in place for that. This again goes for cognitive networks, which in effect are networks which can direct the direct traffic to various ways. Now this, while it would be of great beneficial effect, can also create problems like stalling infrastructure, stalling transportation, and so on. All these things, like financial fraud, again, the methods that have been used for easy transference of money, for digital transference of money, which can help innumerable people who are otherwise not connected to regular banking systems, is open to being manipulated by fraud. So I can only say one thing: this is a huge challenge. But the positive note I would like to add, that where technology is concerned, the good always outweighs the bad. And this positive note, I'd like to start up on the session. And I'd invite my first speaker. Just a minute. I'm trying to get the bio of the speakers. Just a minute, please, because I mean the speakers are also they're all such luminaries in their field. I would like to give a proper. Only 1 minute. Our first speaker is Dr. Raitan Azani. He currently serves as the Director of Research at the Institute of Counter-Terrorism ICT, and the head of the BA and MA specialization in Counter-Terrorism and Homeland Security. I mean, I can't think of a better person to speak on this. At the Lander School of Government, Diplomacy and Strategy, at the Interdisciplinary Center at Herzliya in Israel. He is a colonel at the Israel Defense Forces, so I think has an on-hand knowledge of the subject that he's going to speak about. Dr. Raitan Azani, please.
Thank you very much. I want to share my presentation. Okay, you can see my presentation, yes?
Yes.
Okay, and you can hear me also?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Stevie, for your help. And I want to discuss during my presentation some of the topics that connected to the cryptocurrency issues. And to start with an overall descriptions of the situations on the ground. because we know that since 9/11, United States launched a counter-terrorism campaign with some of the international, institutions that were with this campaign. That in United States, they titled this campaign as a war on terror. This was the idea behind the campaign. And one of the important parts of this war on terror was the counter-terror financing campaign. So since 9/11, we find out changes within the jihadi group, the global jihadists that were influenced from this kind of campaign. The strategy of United States changed dramatically also the course of the evaluations of the global terror organization like Al-Qaeda, that until then they were a centralized organization. Since then, they became a decentralized organization. And when you are a decentralized organization, it influences everything that you are doing as an organization, and you use a different tools to deal with your day-to-day operations, financing operations, and so on. These organizations like Al-Qaeda and afterwards in 2015, ISIS and others work very hard to survive. If you want to survive, you need to be able to be flexible, to be adaptive, and to have the ability to enter into new arena using the new circumstances to continue your operations. So what we can say that in generally, these groups, the global jihadists, were influenced by the international a system or international counter-financing operation. They pushed out from the international banking system that they were there the majority of the 90s. And they, because the regulation, because trial, because legislation, because a lot of things, and a war of the countering terror financing was also in the court system in United States and in other places, though, so they need to find out different areas of operation. One of the things that they did, they go back to the past, meaning they use the traditional channel to bring money to their organization, like they go back to the Hawala system, they go back to criminal activities, and they change some of their modus operandi. The next problem that this international campaign caused is every component of this organization, meaning every jihadi front, establish its own new a financing system. Now, until 9/11, you need to act against one financing system that are centralized. After 9/11, you need to deal with a lot of financing system headed by local leaders in different areas around the world. AQIP has their own financing system. AQIM has their own financing system. Al-Qaeda in Iraq has its own financing system, meaning you need to learn and to understand what are these systems that are operating on the ground. The most important changes within this field was the development of new technologies. When the development of new technologies in the 21st century started, jihadi groups, terrorist organizations enter into this arena. This is the social network, this is the digital currency, this is the what we call the encrypted applications and the darknet. It enabled them and give them a leeway to deal with their financing system during through all these components, and it enabled them also to bypass some of the counter financing campaign that was carried out against this organization. But lately, and I'm very happy to see that it was published also in 2020, United States government seized, a large amount of crypto currency that was around 300 accounts that used by Hamas, that used by Al-Qaeda, and that used by ISIS, meaning these kind of operation, we see that there are a lot of efforts today to deal with all these components of the system itself. And trying to go and to see what we are dealing with, you have here in one slide, you have here in one slide all the financing system sources, channel, storage and management, and client. Meaning to understand from the beginning, from the topics of the sources, how they generate money. Here is the places that they generate money. And there are differences within these sources from external sources and internal sources. We saw this development during the Islamic Caliphate that based on more on internal sources than external one. And then you will have the channels themselves. When you generate money within these sources, it goes to the channels. So the old one or the traditional one was banks, hawala, cash couriers. But during the years and the technology, we enter into Western Union, PayPal, prepaid card, and cryptocurrency, meaning there are changes of the technology that enable them to change their channels of delivering the money. Regarding the storage and the management, it go from a bank account and Hawala system to Bitcoin wallet, meaning they need to change also the storage system and the ability to deal with this component of the storage system. When they enter into the cryptocurrency arenas, one of the things that they must have within their system is cryptocurrency exchange. Why? Because you cannot deliver cryptocurrency, let's say, for instance, a Bitcoin to somebody that he is operated in a remote area and he don't have an ability to have to change this Bitcoin into fiat money. So they need to deal with this kind of phenomenon of the cryptocurrency exchanges, and this became one of the weak points of the system because you can analyze, you can gather intelligence on these cryptocurrency exchanges and deal with these issues. The last component is are what we call end users. At the end of the day, you gather money to deliver this money to your end user. And end user, it's not only the jihadists themselves, it's also all the things around the jihadists, family members, social sectors, and you need all these money for operation, recruitment, salaries, and procurement. This is in general how the system work. And I want to take you another level to see what happened within the new generations of using a financing system in the time of what we had these cryptocurrency capabilities. So the first step is here. Today, every jihadi group that want to bring money to carry out these kinds of generating donation need to go to a financing campaign. You need to start with a financing campaign. You need to promote the idea that you need money for your support, you need money for your operations. And one of the things that you do it openly, because you need it for the crowd, you need it for your a source of money. You need to do it openly, but at the same time, to be secret regarding the channels that you send the money through your to your groups, to your end users. And you need to bring the ability or to make people feel that what they are doing is very secure because it's anonymous, nobody can enter into your Bitcoin wallet, it's something that will not be traceable. So you need to build them, bring them into this process of everything is secure. So on one hand, you publish it on your website that people can, or on your social networks that people can read it because you want to reach the masses. On the other hand, you give them an ability to think that this is very secure. Okay, so why? Because you open for them a communication channel. not only the Bitcoin wallet, communication channels via the internet through other components. So we start with the crowd or donors. These are the target for generating the monies. They have the Bitcoin wallet. And now you have three different options. One, the terror organization published the Bitcoin wallet, so it's very clear that this Bitcoin wallet belongs to a terror organization. Or the terror organization want to operate under the gray zone, and there are charities or Dawa centers that are connected, not openly, discreetly. They are connected to the terror organization, but they publish it openly through the crowd because they want, some kind of money that will be contribute to this organization. So when you understand this system, how the system is work, what you need is intelligence investigation to understand who are the people, the donors, and to find out if when they donated the money, they know that this is for terror organization. To understand what we have in the Bitcoin wallet, if this Bitcoin wallet is already somebody designated this Bitcoin wallet as the Bitcoin wallet of a terror organization. To have investigations on charities or on Dawa centers to see if they are connected. Meaning, part of the information that you can gather from this system to understand that there are these a financing campaign is a financing campaign of a terror organization. You can do it from the open sources, or if you have a problems, you need intelligence investigation that shows that these charities are connected to the terror organization. This is one component of the system. Just see some examples. During the 21st century, we saw a lot of examples of a financing system. Here is one of the fundraising campaign from 2010. You see the name of the campaign is Equipped Us. In Arabic, they called it Jahizuna. It was not, it was public, part of it on a website, part of it was published on the jihadi forums, but they couldn't reach the masses because it was a very small group that were connected to this topic. So it was developed during the years, and you see here a different way of carried out a financing campaign. This is the financing campaign of Al-Qaeda, Jabhat al-Nusra. Is running on the Twitter account, is running through a Telegram account. They give you a connection. You can call us. The same concept you see here with ISIS in 2018, a campaign for financing running through a different channels, Twitter, Facebook, and others, and also Salafists from Gaza. Everybody within the global jihadist groups and even the local jihadist groups understood that this is very important for them to bring money to their organization, and they use this system. On the other hand, you see another example that they publish directly numbers of accounts that they want you to, numbers of telephones or Telegram account that they ask you to contact them. On the first things, they publish it to the open. On the other thing, they want, you say you want to contribute, please contact us and we tell you exactly to what channel you need to contribute your money. When it developed more during these years, we see the Islamic State using and publishing a digital wallet number. Here it is, the digital wallet number, the Bitcoin address. But this time, this Bitcoin address published on the dark web, meaning they also have through the dark web an ability to publish Bitcoin address. And on the other side, another example from the ISIS, but this time is from one of the ISIS financiers and keynote. This is a guy called Abu Hussein al-Brittany that published on his Twitter account the numbers of the Bitcoin wallet asking for donation. This is things that you need to understand regarding ISIS. It's not that only the central command of ISIS, the headquarters, were involved in fundraising event. Every keynote in ISIS were involved in this kind of operation. And when it become even more complicated and people understand that they can make money from using these Bitcoin addresses, you see here 3 different campaigns, 2 campaigns that connected to Al-Qaeda. One of them at least promoted the idea, you contribute your money for our jihad. The second is connected to, you contribute your money for the Ramadan issues, from supporting the needies. And on the other side, this is the Hamas component that said we need this money for our operation. So if I'm zoom in inside this information, you see, they ask them to donate anonymously and secretly with Bitcoin, meaning they told their audience that what if you donate money through Bitcoin is very anonymous, is very secret. So please donate us money, and they gave them the Bitcoin account. You see here in all these places the Bitcoin account, and in some places they gave them also an ability to connect to their organization. You see the same system by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham in July 2020, meaning this a continuous ability. And you see also the system, how the system works, let's say, for instance, in a case study, that we can analyze all the information of this case study from the open sources intelligence. Like a terror organization in Gaza that called the Popular Resistance Committee, published in Facebook, in Telegram, in Twitter, the number of a Bitcoin wallet. Here it is in all the places, the number of the Bitcoin wallet, and ask people to donate money to this organization. So when you start to investigate this Bitcoin wallet, you find out that this Bitcoin wallet is running in one of the companies by one of the companies in Gaza. His Bitcoin wallet that 100% connected to the jihadi organization, and also it's a Bitcoin wallet. I need to finish.
अंजू अंजू ये चेयर उठाओ, आर्या को खाना नहीं दिया.
So I can continue if I understand you correct? No, you don't have.
Yes, you can continue, sir.
Okay.
Please continue for 5 minutes.
Okay, I will finish within 2 minutes. It's okay. So what we have here are investigation through the blockchain to show what happened within this Bitcoin wallet. And then the investigation continue by our senior researchers and find out a connections to a company that called Muhammad Al-Kur Trading Company that has a website that the only Bitcoin wallet on this website, this was the Bitcoin wallet of these jihadi groups. Meaning you can find in one place all these components working together in one place. This is the reason why I'm saying that you need an investigation, an in-depth investigation that enable you to link the wallet to the terrorist organization. But it's not the only things. The most, in my view, one of the most important things is to find out what is the connections of this website, okay, that was a website that served a jihadi group with other Bitcoin exchange around the world, like Exchange, Binance Exchange, and others. So to the designation process of a Bitcoin account can cut the links between these groups of cash for PS to another international Bitcoin exchange around the world. And to end my discussions, I want to describe even a more problematic system. And why I'm saying more problematic system, it's easy to analyze information when you have somebody from outside the organization deliver money through Bitcoin wallet to the organization itself, then to analyze information, what's happened inside the terror organization between the management and the end user. And when we are talking about this component, you can find out that the discussion between them are running through the darknet. Okay, so it's very difficult to find these kinds of connections. So if you are a Bitcoin user, it's not a problem for the organization because they deliver you money through a Bitcoin wallet. You can be a criminal and you can operate in the digital break market and you pay with Bitcoin from, you know, from buying drones, from buying weapons and all these kinds of issues. But if you are a fiat user, they need a Bitcoin transfer office. So now they need an investigation. Who is this Bitcoin transfer office? Who is the fiat users? What the terror organization want to do with this? One of the things that I saw during the last months, this is, let's say, for instance, an example of Al-Qaeda Bitcoin transfer center in Idlib, that these are the link between what we said organization and the end user. It's in Idlib. They said very openly to the people, you can send to us any cryptocurrencies that you want. We will find the way to translate it, transfer it into fiat money. So if you want to see how the system works, you need to search through this component. And with this, thank you very much. I finished my presentation. I'm sorry that I took some minutes from other friends. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Azani. That was a very illuminating talk. And you have summarized the way terrorists would be able to use Bitcoins and other forms of cyber currency for illegal purposes. Now I request our next speaker, Mr. Krishna Sastry, to please speak. Mr. Krishna Sastry, ladies and gentlemen, is a partner in the cybersecurity in the Ernst & Young in India. His prior experience, which is for more than 25 years, has handled a large number of cyber investigations of national and international importance. His core area of expertise includes offline and online digital forensic investigations, cybersecurity breaches, and incident response management, malware analysis, and e-discovery. Please, Dr. Krishna Sastry, we are waiting.
Good morning, Prabha, and good morning to all the participants. So, hope I'm audible. You're able to listen my voice?
Yes.
Right. Thank you, Azani, for giving an excellent presentation about how the Bitcoin wallets are used by the terrorist organizations. But my focus is into more different directions where how the hackers, etc. are using the dark web for the case of cyber attacks, especially in the financial systems, and how they're able to loot a big amount of money. And in most of the cases, the money is going and landing into the hands of the drug cartels, the money laundering people, etc. So who is behind their network is the one question I'm going to answer here. So it is not just the case of, remember, purchasing the drugs, purchasing the illegal weapons, etc. on the dark web, but it's more concentrating towards what really is going in the dark web as well as the cyber security incidents are happening here. So all the views expressed here are my pure personal based on the investigations are carried out, especially the advanced persistent threat attacks that was targeted against the banking and the national critical information infrastructures for the last 1 decade when I moved from the government to the private industry. So I will set the context really what the industry is really bleeding it and what are the various trends we are observing the attacks and who is really behind these attacks. Is it a money launderer? Is it, remember, a drug cartels, or is it a terrorist organizations? How they were all interwoven together for this type of attacks. And one case study I'm going to discuss about, which is generally rated as the blackest day in the Indian history of the banking, where one bank got attacked by the cyber attackers and they lost approximately $10.5 million because they attacked on their cyber systems. And as on date, we are clueless exactly where the money went and landed and who are the people involved in that. how the hackers have really used the dark web for the purpose of, remember, this criminal activity. And what is the ultimate need of the hour? As you're all aware today, starting from terrorist organizations to money launderers to drug cartels have realized the banks are the place where once the digitization has happened, a lot of money is available, where you can hack it and you can transfer the monies. So look at the case of the Bangladesh breach, where it has happened. They're supposed to lose, fortunately, something around 950 million US dollars, but they lost only 81 million US dollars. Starting to some of the banks here, what I mentioned, which are all reported in the public domain. So today, hackers and who is behind the hackers, I will try to show you in the next couple of slides. It is not that just the banking and the financial institutions. Today, even the IT organizations, insurance companies, pharma companies, you talk it anyone, ultimately they're all going to hack the computer systems for the purpose of ransomware infections. So they made the ransomware, they asked the client to provide me the money in the form of Bitcoins. If they are not in a position to pay the Bitcoins, they are keeping the data somewhere in the dark web, etc. So that is where the third attacks are happening. It is exclusively the case of the data breaches. When the data privacy laws have become very stringent in the whole world, and regulatory and privacy concerns are the one which are really creating a big havoc for every organization, every country. So that is where hackers are using, remember, the internet for the purpose of money. But in all these cases where the attack happens, where the victim is supposed to pay, the ultimate point is converting that money all in the form of a virtual currency. It may be Bitcoin, it may be Ethereum, you call it as any variety of the virtual currency. The hackers are asking for this. But who is really present behind this? I have seen it almost the 8 shift systems attack that has rocked the entire world. And who is really present behind the attacks on the banking systems? Finally, money is going and landing in the drug cartels in somewhere in, remember, Southern America, somewhere in Southeast Asia, if you talk about, remember, into the casinos. Why the casinos are involved, how the drug cartels are involved, that we will understand in the next couple of slides. So what is the first trend I've observed, if you look at it, is cybercrime has become a service. So we'll try to call it as a completely SaaS. So entire supply chain management has happened. Drug cartels, terrorist organizations, money launderers are hiding the hackers. Hackers are hacking the banks and transferring the money. And for every, remember, 10 million US dollars that transferred, they are going to get their pie. So this is the first trend we are observing it. So cybercrime has become a completely matured industry today with a perfect supply chain management. Gone are the days where is a small individuals are used to be there. If you compare the skill and the focuses today, we found the high skill and high focused people. That is the advanced persistent threat attacks we'll try to call. They are the real people who are involved in this, all these major cyber attacks, targeting the financial systems of the countries. So they are targeting mainly 3 things. One is the financial systems, the SWIFT servers of the banks, where you can transfer millions of dollars at a stroke. Or it may be the ATM systems where the money can be looted from more than 30, 40 countries at a single span of minute. And data breaches is another places where they're exfiltrating the data, then they're asking the money in the form of, remember, ransom. And third, if you look at is the most important, is the ransomware breaches. And the fourth is, which is really causing more damage if you look at it, is based on the IoT systems who are implemented, something called ransom-based distributed denial of service attacks, where the websites are getting down, the hackers are sending a mail saying, pay me this much amount of Bitcoins, so we'll provide you a solution for this type of attack. Today, for all major cyber attacks that is happening, the ultimate source is only the virtual currency. That's where the real problem we are facing it. And you're all looking dark web only for the purpose of one thing. Is the drug was sold? Is the drug was purchased? Is, remember, any weapon was purchased? But today what we are finding is internet has, remember, especially the dark web has become a very, very big hub where people are selling the malicious codes. The malwares are getting sold. For every 1 minute, 83 new malwares are getting appear in the dark web is a new trend. And per day, more than 7 lakhs new malwares are coming and entering to the dark web is a new trend we are observing it. So that's where they're selling the exploits, how to breach into the computer system, what vulnerabilities that are available, and what are the rootkits that are available to penetrate into the operating system is a new trend they are selling it. And everything and anything you want to purchase, the only option here it is nothing but in the form of virtual currencies. It is not just the law enforcement agencies or the security researchers who are using artificial intelligence and machine learning. Remember, these people who are behind this, dark web, are also using the artificial intelligence and machine learning. Based on that, the malwares are getting developed. Out of 83 malicious codes that is coming for every minute on the dark web, 70% could not be detected by the existing technologies. And they are investing a big amount of money also in the form of R&D, research and development. So these are some of the new trends that are really coming here it is. And to what extent people will try to call ransomware as a malicious program which will encrypt the data. But I would like to call ransomware as a new word called as a revenue generation malware. Today, the nations are present behind it. Countries having a very poor foreign, exchange reserves, they are encouraging their customers to hack into the computer systems of other countries.
Sastry ji, we are not able to hear you.
Ransomware attack has happened. Today, this is what the new trend we are observing it. Bitcoin price variation is linked to the ransomware attack. That is how, remember, they are able to make a very good amount of money. Let me tell you one case, you'll understand how the dark web. I told you this is called as the darkest, remember, day in the Indian banking sector, where on the 11th August 2018, one of the Indian bank ATM systems got impacted, and we lost in a span of 120 minutes, that is in 2 hours, approximately 10.5 million US dollars money has been withdrawn in 25 countries. And as our date, we have no clue exactly who are the persons behind that, who funded these people. Is it a nation or a terrorist organization or a money launderer or a drug cartel? No one knows about it. And if you start looking at the attack also, even though major attack has happened on the 11th August 2018, the actual incident started sometime around September 2017. You can think of the hackers are taking approximately 9 months to stay in your computer system. They're getting, remember, the funding from different organizations to hack it to transfer the money. From September 2017, a phishing mail that was sent to one of the employees who clicked that mail. Through that mail, the whole bank got compromised. And on 21st July 2018, approximately, remember, 11 months from the source of attack, the entire bank ATM system was under the control of the hackers. Then the real dark web activity has happened. In the dark web activity, the global, remember, hackers have started selling the card numbers. And these cards numbers were sold and purchased in more than 25 countries. And it was numbers were distributed to the local people who converted that numbers into physical cards and again distributed in a local gray market in the form of mules. And when all these activities happening in dark web, we are not in a position to understand it, who is really behind that, what was the attack source from where the attacker has committed. Now today, the dark web has become a very good media for, remember, targeting especially the banking and financial industries, in addition to just selling certain things on the dark web. Look at what was the modus operandi. It is not just one bank. The entire world is getting bleeding because of this type of cyber attacks. They compromise only one machine in the whole network. Let it be banking, let it be the defense sector, let it be, remember, space sector. From there, they are laterally moving and harvesting the whole intelligence in the network. And ultimately, remember, they are going to cause the damage depending upon this. Look at the case of, remember, the Iran cyber attack that has happened against their nuclear reactors, to the latest breach that has got reported in any part of the world. And who is the real person who is getting funded? Is it a rogue nation or is it a terrorist organization? It's very difficult to prove it. But the ultimate source where the money is moving from one place to another place is only in the form of a bitcoins. Based on the tactics, tools, procedures they are adopting to hack into the computer systems, yes, we have identified who could be the threat actors. It is not gone are the days where some 15 years boy, an immature hacker is trying to enter into the computer system. Today, it is a professional hackers having a very good link with the terrorist organizations and the money launderers who are the real persons here it is. It may be a rogue nation who is supporting them in the form of a funding. That you have to look at into major. There are certain nations who are hiring the hackers to hack into the computer system. They are providing the money to the terrorist organization. That link is the most important. So based on the tactics, tools, procedures the hackers are using it, we are able to identify what are the various groups and which part of the world they are really available. That's where the complete classification has been done. Like you have mentioned about using a very good data mining techniques, using clustering and linkages, you are able to pinpoint and identify that what was the probable IP address from source where they are trying to attack it. So what is my closing thoughts? Remember, it is the first and the foremost is where we are lagging is the information sharing it. We are doing nuts and bolts. In reality, the information sharing is missing from one country to another country. Who are the real hacking groups who are trying to target the, remember, the banking systems, from where to where the money is getting flown. And please remember, and what form the money is getting flown, that is where we are completely information sharing is missing. So what is the need of the hour if you look at is information sharing of the tactics, tools, procedures these people are adopting is the need of the hour that is most important. Second is enhancing the capability. All countries does not have the same set of tools. The extent, remember, your country may be having, may not have, remember, in the same the set of tools here it is. So information sharing to investigation to forensic capabilities, gathering the evidence properly is the most important thing that is really not present today. So the need of the hour is sharing information and increasing the capability of one country to the other country, because the threat may be present from every country today. If you are trained, you can investigate yourself, doesn't matter for us. But certain countries where you don't have a lack of a traditionally trained, remember, police officials and the forensic scientists or the information security personnel, the threat is also going to pose for you. The most important is investigation to forensic capabilities, collecting the evidence at a right time. That is where the need of the hour is important. Today, we may have some capabilities in a reactive capabilities, but what we are looking is not reactive, moving from reactive to proactive to predictive. So how can we move from reactive to proactive to predictive? How can we increase our capabilities? The most important need of the hour, what we are looking for it is. Third, can't we have a very good, remember, global open source threat intelligence platform, where the IP addresses, where the hacker groups, the Bitcoin, remember, accounts, where it is getting moving from one place to another place. When currency has become converted into a global currency due to these virtual currencies, why can't we have a global threat intelligence platforms where we can share this information, from which wallet to which wallet the money is flowing, from which IP address to which IP address money is getting transmitted. If you are having that, remember, certainly we can solve this issue to a great extent. So the most important need of the hour, what we try to look at is how can you build, remember, together a global open source threat intelligence platform is the most important thing. And again, with the law enforcement capabilities, creation of a phony websites, fake websites, luring the people so that they will come and think it is the actual wallet and they try to transfer the money. Identifying what was IP address from where they are transferring the money. So far, good attempt not been done by, remember, in many other countries. That is where if you are having a very good helping hand, how can you create a phony website and how can you create a very good honeypots to track and trace the people who are using virtual currency for the illegal activities, the most important. Last but not the least, the regulation of the crypto exchanges is the most important. So there are certain countries where it is illegal. There are certain countries which is, remember, legal. So what is the need of the hour is to have, remember, come to a single platform internationally. And how can we control these crypto exchanges? And based on the crypto exchanges data, how can you do, remember, a data mining and doing a very good clustering and linkage analysis to identify the linkage that is happening from one place to another place is the most important task. So these are my viewpoints. I'm open for any questions based on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This was a very educated, it was a stupendous speech. You have highlighted the problems that we are all facing, highlighted the problems that our security agencies and our intelligence agencies need to hone up on skills to understand where our danger lies. And you have brought out the immediate need for a global platform, threat perception platform to where we could all cooperate on this. this perhaps would be a very good thing between India and Israel if we could start off on this matter, since I think both our countries have we have some kind of technological expertise on this. And as I said, it has been a very educative experience for all our viewers. Thank you again, Mr. Sastry. I now request Mr. Madan Oberoi to give us the next talk. Mr. Madan Oberoi is a very celebrated police officer. He's the Director of Cyber Innovation and Outreach at Interpol in Singapore. This is his second round in Singapore, so he is very well aware of financial frauds, about the use and misuse of bitcoins. He's incidentally one of what one would call the extremely educated police officers. He's a Fulbright scholar in the area of cybersecurity and holds a PhD in the subject from the Indian Institute of Technology in Delhi. Dr. Oberoi is currently supervising 2 directorates, including what is called the Cyber Strategy and Outreach Subdirectorate and the Cyber Research and Innovation Directorate in Singapore at Interpol. Over to you, Dr. Oberoi.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the kind words and also for giving me the opportunity. I would also like to thank Krishna Sastry for setting the context in which I can make my comments, and I'll start from where he ended in his closing thoughts. I think Krishna Sastry, if you recall, you mentioned what I noted, 4 points I noted: global threat intelligence platform, platform for sharing of expertise, capacity building, as well as analytics. And I'll base my comments on this. And my comments would be on what are we doing to answer these questions which Krishna Sastry has raised. And that's probably the way to go forward. What can be done and what is being done. First of all, let me say the topic of today's discussion, cryptocurrencies, dark web, cognitive networks, terrorism, financing, and financial frauds, probably reflects one of the most pertinent topics, which is bothering, I would say, majority of our Interpol member countries, that is 194. All of them, or majority of them, are struggling with these issues. The Executive Directorate, that is of Technology and Innovation, which I had in Interpol, is working hard to build capacity of our member countries to tackle these issues. And some of these works, which I would categorize in terms of what Krishna Sastry used, are in those direction, and I'll just quickly go through them. First of all, with regard to building the capability of our member countries, we have recently brought out an investigation manual called Capacity to provide a step-by-step assistance to law enforcement personnel who are investigating in darknet and virtual assets, with a special focus on counter-terrorism practitioners. This manual, among other things, provides basic concepts, techniques, and procedures. How can law enforcement personnel prepare for conducting investigations, what precautions and what safeguards they should do, and also includes guidelines, for example, for seizure of virtual assets, etc. Then we have also created a working group on dark web and virtual assets for law enforcement in collaboration with private sector and academia. The focus of this working group is sharing best practices related to methodologies, practices, and tools in order to de-anonymize criminal actors who are working from dark web, as well as using virtual assets for laundering the proceeds of crime, as well as financing their operations, and also to establish innovative investigative standards and deliver forensic solutions. In fact, the 4th meeting of this group started yesterday and is continuing today. And we have over 260 participants from 56 countries in this meeting today, which is happening. Then we are supporting investigations in our member countries with tools which have been jointly developed by Interpol in association with Austrian Institute of Technology, TNO, the Netherlands-based research organization, as well as Nanyang Technological University. The tools include Dark Web Monitor, as well as GraphSense, which is a cryptocurrency analytics tool. Besides works on this, we are also working with Unicre to develop a toolkit for responsible use of artificial intelligence for law enforcement. And I think Dr. Azani briefly mentioned about drones also, so which is kind of an unknown commodity for law enforcement personnel. So the Cyber and New Technology Lab in my Executive Directorate of Technology and Innovation has developed guidelines and procedures for conducting drone forensics. So what happens once a drone is seized? So we have also prepared guidelines for the first responders to any drone incident. And then once we have secured the evidence, what can be done to extract evidence out of these drones. So we have established procedures which we are sharing with our member countries. And with regard to the tracking financial flows, we have created a task force recently, which will be looking at financial flows in order to track the proceeds of crime. These are some of the initiatives being taken by Interpol with regard to this. In addition, I forgot to mention that we have also created a secure collaboration platform for operational purposes to exchange pieces of intelligence among interested member countries. And on the same lines, we have also created another secure collaboration platform, which we are calling as Global Knowledge Hub, where we are basically sharing best practices, etc., with member countries. So they have one solution where they can look into various theme-based discussion groups, best practices, etc. there. And as an example, let me give you one example of what Interpol has done. Since last year, we have conducted a year-long operation, and we came out with the results last week. So in this year-long operation coordinated in different member countries, there were 35 countries involved. 21,549 arrests have been made. 10,380 locations were raided. 310 bank accounts were frozen, and US dollars 150 million have been intercepted. All these things were coming out of telecom and social engineering frauds, and all this has been enabled by this kind of information sharing, as well as helping member countries to build their capacity. And lastly, I'll just like to mention that we have started the work on establishing a project which we call Insight, which is an artificial intelligence-based analytics platform, which we will be sharing with our member country. We intend to make it available before the end of 2021. So this is what we are doing with regard to our efforts in this area. And I'll be happy to answer any questions in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Oberoi. This was a very reassuring speech that you gave us. Certainly, we are all going to sleep better after having heard you speak today. A lot of points that were very pertinent. Thank you again. And now I would request Dr. Shlomit Wagman to please come and give us his talk. Dr. Shlomit Wagman is the Director General of Israel's Money Laundering and Terror Financing Prohibitory Authority, the IMPA, at the Israeli Financial Intelligence Unit. She's heading the Israeli delegation of the FATF, Manival and Egmont. She joined IMPA as his general counsel after working with law firms in the USA and Israel. She served as an adjunct lecturer at Tel Aviv University, Bar Ilan University, and the Interdisciplinary Center, was a fellow at the Information Society Project at Yale Law School. She has also edited a book called Cybercrime with Professor Jack Balkin. Dr. Shlomit Wagman, I think yours is a very, very much anticipated speech.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure and an honor to be here this morning. And thank you very much for your kind introduction. I will speak now on the financial aspects on terrorism financing, in particular about crypto assets, or as we call it, virtual assets, which has been chosen to be the global name for this phenomena. For my lecture, my section will use the term virtual assets, and that it includes basically all crypto assets and all related activity. The focus of my presentation will speak about the financing elements, because in order to conduct terror activity, and especially in order to go to the virtual worlds, you have to have the connection to fiat money and local economy. Those are efforts that both Israel and India are part of as their membership at the FATF, which is a global standard setting organization. This is the organization that actually sets the standards that all countries must comply with. And we have very good connection with the India delegation to the FATF. What I will discuss now in the following minutes basically reflects our experience in Israel, but also the international experience and what are the standards, the global standards on virtual assets. So, of course, there is a close, we've all seen the close connection between virtual assets and terrorism financing, and we'll try to explore a little bit what the FATF has done with that, what Israel has done, and what other places are related to that. So, of course, virtual assets, there are a lot of promises and also problems. Promises, and this is something that we should all remember. Here we are at law enforcement orientation, but still there are a lot of promises in this field, and we see that there is legitimate purpose and use of those assets. It's enhanced financial inclusion. It allows to lower transactions cost, increase competition in financial services, and give better services to the public, and advance technological solution for global trade. But then, of course, we have the disadvantages for us as law enforcement community, the anonymity and the cash-like characteristics of the virtual assets, the fact that there are no borders. Everything is actually cross-border, and many times in our world, cross-border are actions of higher risk in terms of financing of terrorism activity. We don't have regulated intermediates, and we also have a lot of challenges in freezing, seizing, and confiscating the assets. The solution is FIUs, law enforcement authorities around the globe realize that, is to do AML, anti-money laundering, and anti-terrorism financing by design, namely to create an environment that allows us to track the relevant transactions and provide better and safer environment for that. So as we've seen here in length, indeed, terrorist financing is being held with virtual assets, and we need to see how to solve it. In order to solve it, the FATF, the Financial Action Task Force, has drafted some guidelines and rules that all countries and territories and jurisdictions around the globe must comply with. This is not discretionary, it's not an option. All countries must apply the model that I will present now. Just to take a step back, because I'm not sure that everyone here is familiar with the financial investigation and FINIT, financial intelligence aspects. In every country, there is a unit that's called FIU, Financial Intelligence Unit. In Israel, this is us, IMPA. In India, there is this unit as well, and in all countries. Each FIU receives reports from the private sector in its country. It should analyze those FIUs, those reports, and check them and transfer relevant suspicious activities to law enforcement authorities in order to further conduct investigation and seize the funds. In Israel, IMPA is a very prominent and leading player in the law enforcement environment. And we are also leading in the international sphere in those issues. So when we got to this reality of virtual assets, together with the FATF and all member countries, we've realized that we need to impose the standards that are relevant to the old or to the traditional economy, also to this sphere. And here the rules are kind of simple to say, not to apply. We'll see it in a minute. So VASP, it means Virtual Assets Service Providers, the platforms that are providing the services of exchange and allows us to work in the virtual assets platform. The entire package of obligations that are imposed on traditional financial institutions should apply on them as well. So it means that every crypto exchange, every MSB, money service provider that deals with virtual assets must to comply to those standards. They have to be registered or licensed and supervised for compliance. Each one of them has to be able to conduct know your customer to the clients that are purchasing the virtual assets, and to be able to monitor the activity. And when they are viewing suspicious activities to money laundering or terrorism financing, they must report to the relevant regulator, to the relevant FIU, Financial Intelligence Unit, in their jurisdiction. So by conducting this package, we want to create a safer environment. Namely, it means that every platform must be registered or licensed in one of the jurisdictions around the globe. And if they are not registered or licensed and supervised, then it's very obvious that they are at the black areas, which gives us law enforcement authorities better tools to handle the risk and to know who's legitimate and who's less legitimate, and then also to target our efforts in identifying and focus on the less legitimate platform. In order to make sure that the FATF standards, the reporting regime that applies to all traditional economy will be effective on virtual assets as well, the FATF has decided to conduct a specific adjustment for virtual assets. Namely, the customer due diligence process must be take place at a lower threshold at about $1,000 or euros for occasional transactions, because we understand that transaction in virtual assets are of smaller amounts many times, and that it's very easy to transfer sums on smaller amount. But when they're getting to a higher amount and the threshold is $1,000 and more, we want to make sure that they are monitored and that we have all the details that are related to them. And then the additional requirements that the FATF is asking is the travel rule. And this is a very, very challenging requirement. Basically, it means that every VASP, as every virtual asset service provider, must comply with the FATF wire transfer rules, similar to SWIFT rules, when you have the details of the originator and the recipient of the amounts on both sides. I know that to most of you it sounds dramatic. How the hell can we do that within the virtual asset environment? And yet, the world is going toward this direction, and I explain a little bit later how it works. But within a couple of years, it will be very clear that you are either in compliance with the FATF standards as a platform for crypto, or you are not in compliance. When you are in compliance, you can provide, as a virtual assets service provider, you provide the relevant law enforcement authority the information that they need in order to trace terrorism financing and money laundering activity. And if you are not registered and regulated and in compliance with all those rules, then we could come and attack the platform as a whole, or to, and this is even more important, to make sure that other platforms will not have any appetite to conduct business with that platform or with virtual assets that have passed through those platforms. And in those days, it's very easy to locate, to track the transactions and where they were. So whenever we have any event in which you met such platform, then the entire trail will be black and therefore not welcome in legitimate financial institutions. So the FATF standards for virtual assets have a very broad definition of what virtual assets is, and we are really keeping that as technology neutral. We are not talking about either Bitcoin or Litecoin or Zcash. We are talking about the principles, and that's what matters. The regulation is on, as I mentioned, virtual asset service providers, and as a result, the entire system will be impacted by that, the economical system. They also have to assess and mitigate the risk, and they need to apply the travel rule as in other aspects. The FATF, I'm sorry, but I haven't mentioned that, but in addition to my role as the head of the Israeli Financial Intelligence Unit at the Israeli government, I'm also chairing the operative committee at the FATF, the RTMG working group, which have prepared a substantial part of those global documents that are obligatory to other countries. So the FATF have provided a lot of work, and the documents that you can see here are available online, and some of them are accessible only to law enforcement community, and some of them are to the global public, with red flags, indicators, and virtual assets, case studies, and a lot of information on how to identify and how to act on those issues. And we are doing, from time to time, we're doing a review to make sure that we are actually on point and that we are heading the right direction. So what are the red flag indicators that we're dealing with? Few examples that we have noticed in recent years. First, we have, I'll just take a step back. The virtual assets red flag indicators are reflecting to financial institutions when they need to report to the local FIU. And it applies both to traditional financial institutions or the virtual assets service provider, the platforms for the crypto assets. So one area to focus on is the size and frequency of the transaction. Here we see that when the platform is seeing that there is a structuring of transaction in small amounts and under the record keeping or reporting threshold. So, I mean, it's smurfing in the virtual assets when you're doing many small activities and you're trying to accumulate them to a large sum. When you're making multiple high value transaction or transfer funds immediately to multiple virtual asset service provider, including those registered or operated in other countries. We're also looking at transaction patterns that are irregular, unusual, or uncommon, and that can indicate that there is criminal activities behind them or terrorism activity behind them. For example, incoming transactions from many unrelated wallets in relatively small amounts accumulated of funds with subsequent transfer to another wallet or full exchange for fiat currency. We also see conduction of virtual assets and fiat currency exchange at a potential loss when the value of the virtual assets is getting higher or smaller. Then we see a lot of activities around that in order to launder sums or to find semi-legitimate source for the earns or for the losses, which is also something that is a channel to transfer value among services. We're also looking at the sender or the recipient that might suggest criminal activity, irregularities during account creation, such as creation different accounts under different names on transaction initiated from IP addresses from sanctioned jurisdictions. We also look at the source of the funds of wealth related to criminals activities. When I'm saying criminal activities, of course, all related also to terrorism financing, such as illicit trafficking in narcotics or darknet marketplace, online gambling, or other fraudulent initial coin offering. We're also looking, and this is especially relevant to terrorism financing, on geographical risk. Criminal can exploit countries with weak or absent national measure to detect, prevent, and punish money laundering and terrorist financing regarding virtual assets. And we are seeing more and more activities that is being channeled to those jurisdictions with less requirement. This is something that we expected to see, because as the FATF is putting on its standards and is requiring country to impose the regulation, we see that more activity is being channeled to other jurisdictions with less supervision and ability to monitor that. As and I'll switch to another view of the topic as intelligence agency. We at IMPA, as an intelligence agency, see a lot of value in OSINT in order to counter terrorism financing in the virtual assets world. First, the fact that the information about virtual assets activities is available on the open net. It can be shared in a broad international forum. We don't have here the problem that we many times have about intelligence materials that we cannot share, that this is complicated to exchange information, because every entity, every law enforcement agency can have the ability to review it themselves once you give them the lead. And there's a lot of private sector initiatives that can provide you with the tools. Chain analysis is one of the leading companies that can help you to unreveal the activities, and there are many others. There is no promotion to one or another, but there are a lot of companies in the field. You are not losing any data in the declassification process, and the receivers can verify the source and intent and the investigated and further investigated that, because everything is available out there and open. We are using, for example, Telegram channels, telephone numbers, bank accounts detail, PayPal address, Twitter IDs, website address, Bitcoin addresses. So we're looking at all these open source information, and we're using that in order to analyze and trace relevant information that is being relevant to that, and it allows us also to share this information very openly. When speaking about emerging trends in the field, indeed, this is a global review of emerging trends, as came up from the FATF review that was conducted recently. We see a lot of use of the VASPs that are registered or operated in jurisdiction with without regulation in the field of virtual assets. We see the use of multiple virtual assets exchange, both local and overseas, and jumping between those platforms. We see immediate transfer of virtual assets to virtual asset service provider that is registered or operated overseas, and continued use of tools and methods to increase anonymity of transaction. When we see that, we know that there is a reason to suspect and conduct additional actions from our side.
Dr. Wagman, I would ask you to please wind up.
Okay, so to conclude,
going over the time, that's fine.
So just to conclude, FIUs, we have a lot of information that related to those activities, and I'll conclude here. That's fine.
Dr. Wagner, thank you. And about the working of the FIUs, I think it would be really useful if we could have some workshops between India and Israel, with you heading that, because I think our security forces, our intelligence forces, and the local police would be would benefit a great deal by this. Thank you all again, and request audience to put in the questions. Would request the audience to either raise their hands. I can see now Mr. Kedar Kulkarni. Yes, Mr. Kedar Kulkarni, could you please put in your question? Make it short though, and only to the point.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for such an elaborate session. And it's glad to know that we have standards for cryptocurrencies as well. My question is whether standards are being set for private sector companies as well. given the fact that these hackers or these criminals are looking at some weak links. Like Dr. Krishna Sastry pointed out that how a bank in India was hijacked through the ransomware. That was pointed out to some old softwares which were being used, thus they could exploit the vulnerability. So are there any standards being set for private companies? Like it's always a cat and mouse game, but still, is there any work being done for these private sector companies who are the means for this cryptocurrencies? Yeah, thank you.
Can I answer that question?
Yes, please.
I think I've forgotten the name of the gentleman who has asked this question. Mr. Kedar, right?
Mr. Kedar.
Yes, Kedar, if you look at is the Reserve Bank of India is the regulator, and whatever they propose, it is going to be valid for individual to that of the private organization to the government organizations. Please make it point. Second thing is, it's very clear in India, you can have a Bitcoin. So having a Bitcoin is not at all a crime. Only recently the issue has come up is something called as, remember, regulation of the Bitcoin exchanges. That's what they are going to look at it, because as rightly mentioned by Dr. Shlomit, currently the regulation of the Bitcoins is not at all there. That's where we are supposed to look at with the help of, remember, the law enforcement agencies. Like today we are having a lot of non-banking financial institutions that are existing. But as per the law, everybody is supposed to register, but many of them are doing illegal practices. So if at all you are having a very good, remember, practice where everybody should get registered, then you have enough data with you. You can identify and you can track it from which place to which place the money is going, etc. Who is making the transactions. Same as like a routine case, right? We do have a very good, remember, FIU is going to monitor the monetary transactions you are making it. We know very well anything if you want to make a transaction more than 40,000 rupees, you are supposed to provide, remember, in the form of a cash, you should provide your PAN number, otherwise the red flag is going to get generated and all. But people have identified the ways and means, etc., like a smurfing you are having it, where 10,000 you will transfer it so that the red flag will not get generated. Okay. So currently the regulations are very strong, but there are a lot of illegal way of, remember, people are exchanging these Bitcoins.
Thank you so much, sir.
Mr. Giridhar Mamidi, please. Hello?
Yeah, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes,
yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. So my question is about the FATF. We have seen that FATF is vulnerable to political interference, as was the case with Pakistan recently. While the purpose is to track the terror funding, for the past few years, we have seen that FATF has actually not gone after, they could not really impose any penal actions against countries or organizations which were, funding the terror operations. Like with the pressure from China, Turkey, and probably Malaysia or somebody, Pakistan still continues to be in the gray list, but it is not moving into the black list. So isn't this a concern? Isn't it that FATF has probably not lived up to what it was meant to be? The top level real terror funding countries are getting away with blood, whereas probably the smaller countries or smaller organizations are probably targeted. Is that the case, or do we do anything else to really curb the terror funding from FATF perspective?
I guess that the question was referred to me. I'll try to answer. I just want to highlight that I'm not answering on behalf of the FATF, but on my own. That was a very broad question, and actually the FATF is now sitting and talking about the strategic plan and what should be changed and what should be improved at the FATF effectiveness globally, and it might be part of that discussion. I will just want to highlight that the FATF does not sanction a particular terror organization group, but it looks at countries, and there is a certain processes that on one hand made to be the stick, and on the other side meant to be the carrot. And the process of the FATF, namely the ICRG process, in which Pakistan is now on the gray list, is very structured in terms of what's the process is. You're first going through your mutual evaluation on the country, then you are getting into the gray list, and then you get an action plan. If you're not in compliance with the action plan, then you're going to the blacklist. So Pakistan is in the process of that issue. There are a lot of concerns around the globe about the fact that the FATF is not fast enough, but that comes from, and actually Israel is one of the countries that believe that the FATF should act quickly. More quickly and to be more rapid in its responses. But on the other hand, the majority of countries thinking that this is a process that must have carrots for countries in order to get cooperation and collaboration and in order to make them change and improve their regime. So with that respect, it takes a lot of time. I could just share with you that in terms of, let's say, Iran, that was on that was removed from the double blacklist for a lot of time. Israel and I think that India were the same side of the platform, that we argued that the process is too slow and it should be more fast in order to be more effective, but the decisions are being taken by the consensus for countries, and we were not able to make it faster. At this point, Iran, for example, is indeed on the double blacklist.
Okay.
Thank you. Apurva Mishra, please.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Congratulations to all the four presenters. It was an excellent discussion. All of you highlighted the challenge of unregulated cryptocurrencies being used by terrorist organizations. Given this background, my question is to all four of you. Last year, Facebook announced that it's coming up with its own cryptocurrency, the Libra. And once it was announced, there was a very strong pushback from the American government and from governments around the world that it should not be allowed to launch its own cryptocurrency. But from a long-term perspective, don't you think that for policymakers, it's better that entities like Facebook, Amazon, which are otherwise very heavily regulated under laws around the globe, they should be allowed to enter into this market so that genuine users of cryptocurrency can avail their services, while criminal elements are forbidden from using those services because those entities will otherwise be kept checked by governments around the world. So from a long-term perspective, do you think that it's better to have this approach of allowing entities like Amazon, Facebook to enter the cryptocurrency market?
I'll be happy to take that in very short as a regulator myself. Indeed, I think that the approach is, yes, of course, they can do those activities. However, they have to do it safely, namely under the international standards of the FATF and how to monitor transactions in the market. Once the FATF introduces its approach and applied the regime on the virtual assets platform, then we saw the drawback of those companies, namely because they did not plan to comply with those standards. Once they will be in compliance, of course, they could be the perfect fit for that. But I think that was a chilling effect on them because they wanted to do it faster and without the required balances and monitoring and KYC that is required in other platforms.
Dr. Azani, do you have some thoughts on that?
Yes, I can add to this topic from my point of view, meaning from the jihadist point of view. The idea behind different cryptocurrency, it doesn't important things in the eye of the radical Islamist global jihadists, because they need to use this currency. For them, the source is not important. For them, if they will be able to exploit the system and delivering money from one place to the other place, it could be Amazon, it could be Facebook, it could be Twitter, it doesn't matter. It could be Bitcoin on the other side. So you need to bear in your mind that the other side, meaning the enemies, they want to have the money and to move the money quickly. If the platform allow them, although the platform is going to be operated and be in compliance to FATF issues and others, but if the platform allow them and is anonymous, they will use it through, let's say, for instance, charities, through people that are not really directly connected to the organization that deliver this kind of money, through criminals. So they will find, you know, the places, the gaps that enable them to deliver this kind of money from one place to the other place. And what Dr. Shlomit said, and I'm totally accept it, we need to build this kind of, you know, international concept and operation to counter all these virtual currency efforts, because at the end of the day, it's international cooperation.
Thank you all our distinguished panelists. It has been a very educative session. It has been a session which I have personally learned a lot, and I hope that most of our audience would have also learned a lot. We have a little bit transgressed our time, but I think it was absolutely worth it given the quality of the lectures that we have had. So on behalf of India Foundation, thank you again. Over to Soumya.